I'm working on a rewrite for a screenplay that I've been working on for about 8 years. It's been so long and I want this project done and it's so close. So I have to prioritize it, even though I'm working on something new that I also really like. So yeah, it's been really hard over the last 2 years to get it ready. And now it's like, all right, almost at the finish line. And so much is changing, which that's totally normal in this industry. And this story in particular has gone through, I think, four major rewrites. It started back in 2017, 2018. I was living in Los Angeles. I had been there for about 5 years, had gotten my Masters of Fine Arts in Screenwriting and Television through a low residency program at Stevens College, and that really solidified my love for screenwriting and a solid foundation after getting a grad degree. Now, I can do a whole nother video about whether you should or need to go to grad school. I'll totally talk about why I made that decision. But coming out of that, I had 2 feature film scripts completed under my belt as part of my portfolio, a lot of other stuff too. But it was time to write something new, and I was going out on various meetings with production companies, really small ones, like no one you've probably ever heard of, and pitching ideas. And in one particular meeting, I pitched 3 relatively fleshed out ideas. And then they weren't the producers, the executives, like whoever they were, I don't really remember. They were not responding to any of them. And so I pitched like a really off the cuff idea. They love the short story, The Woman in the Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and the themes of isolation and gaslighting, um, and women's autonomy are something that speak to me as a writer and things that I love thinking about and exploring. And I had, I guess, read that short story, or had been thinking about it. And so I pitched this off the cuff idea, and these execs responded to it, and they're like, "Sure, like yeah, go flesh that out." There was no exchange of money to write this. It was not any type of paperwork. It was just like, "Oh, I like this idea. If you do more with it, come back and let us know." So me being naive and not really understanding how Hollywood worked, even after an MFA in screenwriting and after working in development and in the agency world for literally 5 years in Los Angeles, I started developing that story and ended up writing a draft. I'd have to look and see. I don't even know where in my files it would be, but I wrote something of a draft. And when I finished it, I'm like, I didn't really like it. Um, it was quite boring to me. It just felt bland. And, I put in a lot of effort. So I was trying to understand why it felt like that. And after about it for a while, and I'm talking about probably months, I realized that there was not much of me in the story. And this whole idea of like write what you know, I'm like, where am I in this? It was a world that I didn't really know or care about. It wasn't something that I had to research. Um, I was just kind of like swirling big ideas around with it. And so I didn't want it to go to waste, but I knew like there was nothing in it that I wanted to like show people either. And so I took it back to the drawing board and I decided to like redo the entire thing, set it in a new location in the Texas Hill Country where my parents live. I visit there quite regularly to see them, and I reframed it as the legend of La Lechuza, which is a shape shifting owl witch, if you're familiar with Tex Mex urban legend lore. It was a story that my grandmother used to tell me when tucking me in at night. And, um, I looked into a bunch of different legends in the Texas region. La Llorona had already been done, the Donkey Lady, um, Chupacabra, and La Lechuza. And I guess, I chose La Lechuza because hadn't been made into a film, and at least not like a Hollywood level one, and La Llorona had already been made into two. There wasn't a lot of super specific mythology behind the figure. So I saw it as an opportunity that I could create my own. And I did. I dug into the research. I listened to podcasts. I read short stories. I read Reddit threads to try to find out like everyone's take on La Lechuza and morph it into something that I was super interested in and build my own mythology around it too, and not specifically like just copy somebody else's. I wanted to create something new about it. And honestly, I'm still figuring it out. Even here 8 years later, it's not like set in stone. And with each new iteration, I uncover something different and exciting about it. My nose itches. So I revamped the script, did a page one rewrite with La Lechuza in mind at the forefront, and took the original story, which was like had nothing cultural or Tex-Mex in it at all. And it was set in like New England somewhere. I don't even know if I said what state it was in. It was set in New England. Reset it in the Texas Hill Country that I'm very familiar with, and created like this whole new story. I wouldn't say a whole new story, like kind of the framework ideas were there, but this was now a story about Lala Chusa. Um, that script I worked on for I don't know, I probably spent like a year writing it. I was living overseas in Bahrain, and my writing friends from my grad school and my writing friends in Bahrain who were wonderful. All of them are wonderful. They all read those very first drafts, and I'm so grateful. It was probably like such a bad script back then. Um, and also like quite bland. I'm like, I haven't figured this out, and I've been working on this for a long time and haven't really cracked the code yet. And then was it that version? I kept, rewriting it here and there. I submitted it to a couple of contests, but honestly, I really didn't submit it to many because I still didn't feel like it was good enough. But at some point, I started giving it to managers uh, that I was meeting through Coverfly when that was still a thing. And it was, I guess, different enough, good enough to land me meetings, and people read it, and one manager really responded to it and signed me off of it. And that's a whole another story because I was actually talking to two different managers. Both of them wanted to sign me, and I chose one over the other because the one I ended up choosing was interested in my horror portfolio and this script in particular, where the other one was interested in my biopic script about Laika the Soviet space dog. And it's funny to think like how things would be different had I went with the other person. I went with the horror manager because I felt like that was a more, not sure isn't the right word, but an easier isn't the right word. But I saw kind of, I guess, more opportunities to break in through the horror path. And so I signed with him, signed, like, there's no paperwork or anything, like handshake. All right, you're my manager now. And the script went to the back burner. I didn't get any notes. We really didn't talk about it. He sent it to different people to read. And I guess I got a few meetings. And anyway, flash forward after 2 years, and this is a whole nother conversation. that we can have. After 2 years, I decided to drop that manager and just be an unrep screenwriter, work on my stories, and continue looking for someone who is a better fit. Met more managers, had more conversations, and ended up getting signed again based off this script that I didn't honestly think was very good. But people saw something in it because I think it was just a different story they hadn't heard and hadn't seen, which carries a lot of weight. And this person decided, like, all right, there's something here. Let's work on bringing out what makes this special. Took it back to a page one rewrite. And I'm not talking about like, we're just going to start rewriting it. Like, I had to go back to outline stage and rework the entire thing. And that's when certain ideas started to fall into place that really elevated what I already had, like a scene with this giant bird's nest. And I'm like, how was there never a bird's nest in a movie about a freaking owl, like a freaking owl demon, owl witch? It took a year to come up with a new outline, which was pretty um, in depth. And then it took another year for me to actually rewrite the script and get it to a place that he was satisfied to take it out for readers around Hollywood, which is exactly what we did. Um, he sent it out and it got read by a lot of people, like producers who have made movies you have heard of and you have seen in the theaters. And that was really cool, and validating, like extremely validating as a screenwriter, that it was good enough for folks to read it, good enough for people to have meetings with me and talk about it and talk about what other things I'm working on. It was funny because I still felt this self-doubt. I still felt this like this isn't good enough. And I I honestly still feel that, which is weird. And I'm like, it forces me to try to be better. But I also have to keep reminding myself, like, no, this is good enough. Like, obviously, here's all the reasons why it's good enough. I probably had, I don't know, 10, 15 meetings. Like, it was a good dozen or so meetings. I have them on my calendar. I'm sure I could look it up, but there's a good amount of meetings that I had around the script. And I was really happy that I got it to that point in order to be able to have that experience that I had been working towards. Like, this is like water bottle tour that you hear about when a script goes out. That was validating. I still personally felt like the script wasn't hitting the mark of like what I was really trying to say about it. Um, but every time I was working on it, I'm like, okay, it's good enough. The script ended up finding a champion with a producer who wanted to continue working with me on it. Before we even started looking for directors, they had notes. So we went back and forth about 3 rounds over, I don't know, 6 months or less. I don't know if it was as much as 6 months, but a couple of months of notes back and forth, got it to a spot that they liked. And I'm good at I'm like very collaborative. I'm very good at taking on board notes and implementing them and trying to at least meet the intention of what they wanted out of the next draft. And so I think that's a really helpful trait to have as a writer, because it's such a collaborative medium, screenwriting. You're going to be working on it with a bunch of different people. So now I've gotten notes from my manager, I've gotten notes from the producer, and then they took it out to different directors, and that took a few months for them to read it. And then the producer meeting with the directors to hear their specific pitch and ideas about the film, and then we got to regroup as a team, which was really lovely to be a part of those conversations. I wasn't a part of the meetings with the directors initially, but I did get to have a voice in um, the vote of who we wanted to move forward with as a director. And we chose somebody who um, had a specific vision, uh, a specific visual style that they wanted to bring to the story, but then also like they liked what the heart of the story was, and then had different priorities about how to elevate what foundation I had already built. From there, I got brought back into the conversations with the director. We had one group call where we kind of hashed out what the path forward looked like. I got to hear more about their vision for the script, style, and how they wanted to make it, and also the weaknesses that they saw with my story and characters. Then it was like back to work, back to rewriting. Um, I took some time to digest the initial conversation, and now I've met with the director one on one twice. Oh, and we only have a specific amount of time to do this in because the director is going to go off and film another movie, so their attention is going to be taken away from this project. And also Hollywood kind of really slows down between Thanksgiving and the end of January when Sundance happens because it's the holidays, people are traveling, getting things off the ground is a lot more challenging during that time. So we want to try to get it out to financing and buyers before Thanksgiving. So I have about 2 months to do this in. And here I am making a video instead of rewriting. I meet with a director one on one. They sent me notes over. I responded to them. And so now we're like kind of on the same page with a conversation about the script as a jumping off point, and we align on what I want to prioritize and what's the word? The goal. And the goal is to redo the outline. Make not a new structure, but find the structure that works for the story that we all want to tell. And the director is the captain of the ship at this point. So I am now trying to really bring their vision to life. So I take it back to outline stage. Every script of mine, the process is a little different. I normally don't use index cards, but given that I already had like an outline from the current draft, I was trying to build it out in just like a Google Doc file, which is what we're using since we have people, multiple people in the mix. I wanted a working copy of things so that everyone could go into the file and see where we're at. And I'd never used index cards, but my brain was like becoming too disorganized. I couldn't keep track of everything. And so I decided that I'm going to try index cards for the first time in a really long time and use the floor in my office to just spread them all out and start moving things around because I had a lot of scenes already in the script that might need shuffling. And it was just really helpful for me to lay it all out on the floor and be able to like move things around. I built out the outline. It took me a good like 2 weeks. A lot of that time was just spent like thinking about it, figuring out where the best place for certain scenes was. Sometimes, it might be able to work in two different spots. I had to think hard about why a particular place was the right fit. And for that scene and allowed the best transition into the next scene. I typed up the new outline and then we had a whole nother second conversation about the outline to see if we're on track uh, and where the next priorities were for fleshing out the rest because I didn't have everything figured out. I had like the first half pretty good, the second half I still needed a lot to fill in. And then in that conversation we had, we realized like, oh, there's some more structural moving of things to be done. But we talked it out. We came up with a plan. And honestly, like I was quite nervous going into that second conversation because I had put in like 2 weeks of work. So the clock is ticking, 2 weeks out of 2 months gone. And I built out something and I'm like, shit, if they don't like it, or if this is like the completely wrong direction, like that is a lot of time lost. So I have this weight on my shoulders to get it right. And I keep telling myself, it's okay if I don't get it right the first time. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like this is part of the process. Is I could have done all this work and then it could have not been correct. And the whole point is that would be able to realign and then know that that's not the right path and pivot and find the right path together. Luckily, that wasn't the case. Um, we the path that I had started going down was a path that's working and the director was responding to. So we talked through um, the current state and the current structure. We just collaborated and spitballed ideas and how to wrap things up in the second half of the film, aligned on what we think is going to work best. And now that's the stage I'm at. I spent the last few days just thinking about things, watching movies, watching comps that I probably watched like 4 years ago. And so I watched a couple of films this weekend to just get in the zone, and those are really helpful. I watched Suspiria, the new one, which I think is just an amazing film. I don't know why it didn't get the love that I think it should have, but there are so many layers. I think I've seen it about 5 times now and finally feel like I have pulled out every single thread and layer that I can with that movie. And I watched the new Stepford Wives from 2004, which was also something I had been sleeping on, and it's so good and funny and just timely with everything happening in the world today. I also watched We Were Soldiers because my husband's doing a grad school program and taking a media or war and media, politics and media class, and I hadn't watched that in a really long time, and that was super moving. I'm working on a military script that I put on back burner for this rewrite. Anyway, so that's where I'm at. I am in kind of phase 2 of this outline rewrite process. I have note cards spread out all over my floor. I have the second half of the outline to flesh out and just look at every single scene, make sure that it's serving a purpose, make sure that transitions are making sense. And then once the structure's in place, I think of it like as a skeleton and then start hanging the meat on the bones and amping up the scares or the horror, the atmosphere wherever I can. And the stage of this project, which has gone on for many years, next stage is to get the script in the best shape possible to go out to buyers or financiers. I don't really know what that looks like. I've never been a part of that process, but I'm hoping that it will all go well here in the next couple of months. And yeah, that's the life of a screenwriter. I'm 39 years old. I have a day job. I just actually switched day jobs back in January because the other one, it just ate up so much of my time. And this one, the new one, even though I don't know, it's tough because it allows me a lot more time, but it's not a central core part of my identity like the last one was. And that's something that's been really tough over the last few months. I've been there for 7 months now. Very tough to get over because it's not part of film and television at all, or even film and television adjacent, but it is good money and it gives me a lot of freedom to do my creative work, which I guess is the balance that I'm always trying to achieve. And here I've achieved it and I'm still not happy. So I'm working on that. Comment if there's anything you'd like to know about this process or something else as a screenwriter or filmmaker living in Hollywood or not living in Hollywood. I've done both. And I will continue giving updates on how this goes. And, hopefully I'm very grateful. Even though I say I get frustrated by this project, I am very grateful that it has had this staying power. And I have to give myself credit for mining the story and sticking with it long enough to really figuring it out, because to me it's like the sculpture that I've been chiseling and finding the shape under a mound of stone, and I've been doing it with like little nub tools. um it's been a lot to figure out, but I guess that's the job. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe and follow for more. This is one of my very first videos, but I would love to do more. I feel quite alone here in my office just working on things like this. And I have lots of plates that I'm spinning with different projects. I'd love to tell you all about them and share what I've learned throughout the process. Bye.